everybody. I'm Chanel, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of AAXO to the first of our Lunch and Learn series that AAXO is launching. We at AAXO want to ensure that you and your teams are continuously learning and gaining new insights. AAXO is here to support its members and our industry. If you're not yet a member and are interested in joining us, please email aaxo@aaxo.co.za to find out more. Also, if you want to share any ideas or specific topics that you'd like us to cover going forward, then please do get in touch. So before I get into the session, just some quick housekeeping. We are recording today's session. So if you would like to share with any team members that couldn't be with us today, we will provide the on-demand recording post the session. There's also going to be 2 polls during the session. So we would love to hear your insights. So please do look out for those and definitely participate. And lastly, if you do have any questions, you can either raise your hand or send your question in the Q&A box. The speakers will answer those throughout the session. So in today's Lunch and Learn session, we're going to be unpacking how to future-proof your online measurement strategy with Google Analytics 4. Future-proofing our digital experience is the key to staying on top in a very fast-moving digital world. From optimizing our websites to maximizing your marketing strategy, what you do today can have a huge effect on the success tomorrow. And it doesn't have to be difficult. So in this session, we're going to take you through the best ways to supercharge your customer digital experience now and into the future. With more channels for consumers to choose from than ever before, marketers really must consider and assess every part of their online advertising strategy to better target customers in an increasingly overcrowded spaces. Today, we have 2 speakers joining us from Sprout Performance Partners. Sprout Performance Partners is an independent digital performance partner. They were founded in 2013 and they employ 50 digital marketing specialists across Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg. They are one of the most qualified Google marketing platform service partners on the continent. They know how to move theory into practice and understand the impact of consultancy service on media buying success. They support both advertisers and agencies in delivering on digital transformation and generating tangible results from media buying. With us today from Sprout, we have Jeremy, who is a digital marketing consultant experienced in implementing ad tech solutions with publishers, marketers, and agencies. He works closely with organizations to develop and implement digital transformation programs based on Google BCG framework to future-proof digital marketing capabilities and improve ROI. And then we also have Remy, who graduated in information systems and has been working with Google Analytics since 2018. He has worked on implementations across different industries and platforms using Google Tag Manager. He is experienced in data analytics, reporting with Google Looker Studio, dashboards, as well as personalization and ABC testing experiments with Google Optimize. So let's get into the session. Thank you, gents, and welcome.
Thanks, Chanel, and hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session. I'm really pleased to be presenting to you all today from Sprout Performance Partners. It will be myself, Head of Consulting at Sprout, and Remy, who is our Lead Analytics Consultant. So a little bit of information about Sprout first. We were founded about 9 years ago in 2013, specializing as a search agency before becoming a paid social and programmatic media buying agency. In 2016, we adapted the full Google stack for a media buying agency. And in 2019, launched the consulting offering around Google products. We were very proud to become a certified Google service partner in 2020 and started working with Google, delivering products and projects for them in 2021. Today, we're a team of over 50 people based in Cape Town, Joburg, and Durban. And Remy today is joining us from his hometown in France. So what makes us a bit different from other agencies is that we're not only well trained in Google products, but we've also gone through a certification process to become a certified service partner with Google. So that means they'll ask us to train people on their behalf, project manage projects with them, provide managed services, and then also do end-to-end solution design and implementation of Google products for them. Our focus areas fall into 6 key areas, but digital media buying being our oldest practice offering. So we'll do bespoke digital strategy for clients, full funnel media buying for them across all paid channels, and then the reporting thereon. Media measurement is something that we're speaking about in a little bit more detail today, specifically around Google Analytics and the implementation thereof. We also work closely with clients to ensure that they have proper tracking frameworks in place, that the media is measured correctly so they can report on it. And then we also build and automate reporting dashboards for our clients. Quite closely tied to that is our data strategy offering out of our business intelligence team. They work very closely with clients to activate their first-party data and use that effectively in personalized marketing campaigns for their clients. Digital transformation is a practice area that we work quite closely with Google on. We use a transformation model that was built by Google and Boston Consulting Group. And by applying that to clients, we help benchmark them against their competitors and industries worldwide. Then we develop transformation roadmaps for them and help them to project manage and implement the projects that come out of those roadmaps with their technology teams. Our creative team works very closely with clients, agencies, and advertisers to develop data-driven creative to personalize their marketing messaging. So we'll either train agencies and clients how to do it themselves, or we will do it on their behalf. And then finally, we also have an SEO team. They work very closely with our clients to optimize the organic traffic, and also use a tool called Google Optimize to help A/B test different user journeys in their or on their websites to help improve conversion rates. So predominantly, we seem to work for some reason very deeply in the financial services industry. That's where many of our clients lie. But we also work with retailers, restaurants, agencies, and of course with Google too. So today we're going to talk about Universal Analytics and the move to Google Analytics 4. And the reason Google has started to move away from Universal Analytics and implement Google Analytics 4 is because there are 3 key trends that have emerged over the past years that affect us quite significantly as digital marketers. And it's quite a challenge because it's not something we can really control, and that is essentially user privacy. So people these days want to share less information with us, but they expect our marketing messages to be a lot more personalized to them. So they're giving us less information, but they want more context from our messages. So that is a big challenge that we're facing today. Then there's also a challenge around regulation. So in Europe, people are confronted, or marketers are confronted with GDPR and the implications that has around the information they can and cannot track. In the US, they've implemented CCPA, or the California Consumer Protection Act. That also has an impact on how businesses track their users in a digital environment. And then in South Africa, of course, we have POPIA, which comes with its own set of headaches for all of us. And then the third challenge we have, making it a really nice little trifecta to deal with, is platform changes. So this is where various browsers, independent of any regulatory requirements or user inputs, decide what changes they want to make to their platforms. And recently, a lot of those changes have impacted our ability as marketers to track and measure what people are doing. And I think Apple in particular has been quite strict in what they've applied in terms of preventing third-party cookies being dropped and allowing us to measure our marketing efforts in that way. So if we take a journey down memory lane, Google bought a platform called Urchin in 2005. So that's pretty much almost 18 years ago. And when they bought it 18 years ago, they had no way of knowing what kind of challenges we were going to be faced today, namely GDPR, CCPA, and all the tracking that limitations that Apple have implemented in their ecosystem. So over time, Google Analytics has become less effective in measuring campaign performance. And that's very much because it's a cookie-based platform, and third-party cookies, which we use for measuring, are being deprecated. We're seeing less and less of them around. So we're able to track less efficiently as we did pre-2016 when GDPR was implemented. And even Chrome now, or Google's browser, has indicated that they're going to drop support for third-party cookies. Up until a few weeks ago, they were going to drop support in 2023. Now it's been moved up to 2024, which essentially means we as marketers have another year to get a measurement structure in place that will help us to track the efficacy of our digital marketing campaigns once those cookies are deprecated. So if we look at where we are today, Google made the announcement in March 16th that they're going to deprecate Universal Analytics on the 1st of July. So that means for us, practically, for the next 218 days, we can continue to use Universal Analytics as we have for looking at campaign performance, looking at people visiting our websites, and deriving insights from that. After the 1st of July, Universal Analytics is going to go into read-only mode. So that essentially means you'll be able to log into analytics, you'll be able to see your historical data, but no new data is going to be recorded in Universal Analytics after the 1st of July. So that's why it's become really important to implement a new solution. And that is what Google's been working on for the past couple of years, and that's GA4. So their ideal recommendation has been for people to implement GA4 at least a year before 1st of July 2023, just so that you have comparable data in place. If it's not been done yet, it's not a train smash. People can still make the move and start learning how to use the tool. So when Google made this announcement around deprecating UA, a number of questions were asked by marketers. And the primary one was, well, why are you sunsetting Universal Analytics? Because you're making our lives a lot harder now. And the reason was Google had already seen that UA had stopped being as effective as it was pre-introduction of a number of measures by governing bodies and browser inputs. And they saw that we were moving very much towards an environment that focuses on consumer privacy. So they wanted to build a new platform that takes that into account, and then measurement was focused around privacy-centric solutions and not being dependent on the third-party cookies that are being phased away. So the next question people asked is, if this is a brand new platform, is there going to be a difference in the data that we're looking at? And the answer is absolutely yes. So what people need to bear in mind when they implement GA4 is that it's a completely different solution. It's built completely differently. The measurement model is completely different. So it's not going to be a question of comparing apples to apples anymore. You're going to find in GA4 that you're recording a lot more data because the measurement model is based on events. And because the measurement is a lot more granular, it's going to produce a lot more data for you to look at. And that's kind of one of the key reasons Google asked users to start implementing it last year already, so that they could quite easily do year-on-year comparisons with the data that they're looking at. Then the next question people asked was, well, why don't you just upgrade UA? Why do we have to go into a brand new platform? And that's, again, because UA was built on a third-party cookie model, and those cookies are going away. So that observable data is becoming less and less, and people will need to work with model data and inferred data a lot more significantly going forward. So when you're looking at Google tools now, you'll see people speaking a lot about terms like observable data, model data, and inferred data, because the observed data is starting to go away. So what's different in GA4? And the short answer to that is quite a lot. So we've already spoken about it being built for a different ecosystem. So that takes into account measurement that's not built on cookies, conversion modeling, model behavior, and the new privacy controls to cater to privacy regulation. Because the tricky thing here is that while GDPR and POPIA are all in place, it doesn't necessarily mean those laws are going to stay the same. They may very well evolve and change in years to come. And Google needed to build a platform that could cater to those changes. So what you'll see when you start using GA4 now is there's a lot more predictive analytics in there. So it's a lot more intuitive in terms of the information that it's going to give you. Different users can log into the platform and see different views and get different insights. And it's also very much geared towards the particular vertical that you're working in. What was also very important for Google in building a new analytics platform, and perhaps not that important in an eventing context, but that it would be a cross-platform analytics tool. So where Universal Analytics was quite good at measuring web behavior using third-party cookies, it had quite a big blind spot when it came to people moving on to apps. So when you were looking at your analytics data, you couldn't match one user across both website and app when they were visiting your entities. But with GA4, it's built a solution that can work cross-platform and quite easily track a user moving from engaging with you on your website versus engaging with you on their app, and matching that user to one user ID across multiple platforms. And then from a digital marketing perspective, where GA4 has really become very impressive, is its ability to activate media within the Google stack. So some of you may be familiar with GA360, which is Google's enterprise analytics platform. So that's a premium tool, which is very expensive, but offers the capability to plug into Google Ads, SA360, and the Google marketing ecosystem, so that you can build audiences in platform, push it to those buying platforms for activation. That's something that was very limited in Universal Analytics. But with GA4, all of that functionality is now available for users free of charge. And it's a very powerful tool to use in your marketing toolkit. So that's a great advantage for marketers using GA4. So what we'll see in GA4 is it's cross-platform, it's cross-device. It doesn't sample data the way Universal Analytics did. So you get a lot more accurate information there. And from a reporting perspective, it's very flexible and offers a lot of customization. So at the Universal Analytics, where you'd see in your menu bar a lot of different reporting options, now you have a report builder in GA4, which was brought over from GA360, which gives you a lot of flexibility around how you report, how you build your own reports, and the type of templates that you can use for reporting. From a measurement perspective, GA4 has been built to comply a lot more with regulatory frameworks. It also comes with built-in data management tools. So essentially, you're able to upload your own first-party data into GA but you're also able to delete and remove data where you feel there may have been a privacy infringement. So that's a key part to Google building their platform now to dovetail into what new regulatory requirements may come in future. And then also very handy for clients who use user login data. So if people come to your site and register and do certain things on your site, measuring that becomes a lot easier in GA4. I mentioned earlier that GA4 also leans quite heavily into machine learning. So what we're going to see in GA4, which is brand new compared to Universal Analytics, is Google offering their machine learning tools or using their machine learning tools on our behalf. So we don't necessarily need many of our own data scientists to do a lot of modeling. That's being done in platform for us. So when you start using it, you'll see Google recommending or predicting particular audiences that you can build or activate or track across your website. It's delivering automated and custom insights. So by automated insights, it's insights that Google's finding by analyzing your site data and then surfacing that with you. So for instance, it could be a spike in traffic from a particular city or from a particular campaign, just to give you that information without you having to spend too much time yourself trying to find that data in platform. And then with custom insights, it also allows you to configure certain parameters that you would like Google to surface an insight when a particular event happens on your website. And then with natural language insights, this is something I really enjoy, is that you can actually type questions into the UI and GA4 will try to interpret, normally quite successfully, what your question is, and then it will surface which report you need to look at to answer that question. And then a lot of automated events are being measured as well. So it's adding a lot of tracking and insight into your analytics platform that in UI you would need to have used a developer to add a lot more information into your installation to surface that kind of data. So you really are getting a lot more out of GA4 versus what you're seeing in Universal Analytics. And also important to bear in mind that UI is currently in maintenance mode. That means Google's not doing any further feature development in the platform. It's just leaving it as is. And all the new features that they're developing are only being released into GA4. Some highlights in the platform is enhanced measurement. So I mentioned earlier that Google's tracking a lot of more data for you. So when you start setting up the platform, you can just use a toggle to switch on a lot of new tracking requirements, which would have required dev work previously. So that would be things like page scrolls, downloads of PDFs, video views, clicks on particular interactions. It really does provide you a lot more out the box than UA did. The analysis hub is what the new reporting UI basically looks like. And here it really gives you the opportunity to either use particular templates to pull reports or start building your own custom views and custom insights that you'd like to glean from your campaigns. The insights you spoke about earlier, that gets in surfaced for you right at the start of your analytics login. So it's on the home page. All of these insights get put right in front of you as you log into the platform. At the moment, it's focused very much around conversion and attribution and e-commerce and gaming insights. But as the tool evolves, they'll start surfacing additional insights based on the type of property that you, the type of sector that you've indicated your property is for. The predictive audiences I mentioned earlier, these are things like identifying particular users that may not be visiting your site in the next 7 days, somebody you might buy something, somebody you might opt out of something. that really depends on tracking enough data into your platform. And then again, based on the kind of setup you have, Google will suggest different audiences that you can build and utilize. Of course, you can also create a lot of your own custom audiences based on what you would like to be targeting or seeing on your website. And then from a product linking perspective, I touched on this earlier, but this is everything that you're able to link to as a marketer now using GA4. So you can link to Google Ads. As a publisher, you can link to Ad Manager. The link to BigQuery is also a really great addition to GA4. So for companies that are doing quite advanced data analysis and using Google Cloud Platform, this allows you to move your data from Google Analytics into BigQuery for really user level and event data analysis. So for companies that use data scientists and need to link data from a lot of disparate sources together, that becomes quite a nice advantage to use. And then it also links to your Merchant Center, Google Play accounts, Firebase, and also Search Console for SEO activities. And then from here, I'm just going to hand over to Remy, who's going to chat about some of the new concepts in Google Analytics.
Hello, everyone. Yes, so I'm just going to take you through a few new concepts in GA4 to show you how it differs from Universal Analytics. So first thing, we're actually going to look at the heat types. So basically in Universal Analytics, you used to have a different type of heats. So you used to have page view hits, event hits, e-commerce hits, and social interaction hits, to name a few. So yeah, basically when a user would come on your website, Universal Analytics would record a page view hit because you've seen a page, and then it will record some event hits as something different, you know, because that's how the Google Analytics setup was done. Because remember, back in the day when Google Analytics was created, most of the traffic was actually web-based. And now we know that it has changed because, you know, most of the traffic is actually mobile-based. So GA4, because it is, you know, used across web and mobile, Google Analytics actually decided to streamline everything. And when you're actually dealing with mobile tracking, you want everything to be an event. That's actually the model that was used by Firebase. And then Firebase was bought by Google. So as you can see there, now in GA4, everything is now captured as an event. There is no more distinction between, for example, page view and an event. So for example, instead of recording a page view hit, now GA4 is going to record a page view as an event. So yeah, so that was basically done in order to streamline the tracking between mobile and desktop. Next slide. Then we also have a difference when it comes to the event structure. So for those of you that have used Universal Analytics, you know that when you create an event, you need to assign it an event category, an action, and a label. In GA4, that's not the case anymore, and there is no distinction between heat types as well. So now in GA4, you just need to give your event a name. And basically, if you want to add more details, because it's true that, you know, in UA, it was quite interesting to be able to have these three items, you know, so that you can actually further define the events that you're dealing with. Instead of that, in GA4, you just give an event name. And then if you want more information on your event, then you are welcome to make use of the event parameters, which we're going to speak about a bit later in the presentation. So when you do your migration, it's important that you keep that in mind, that the event naming convention is basically different. So yeah, you need to make sure that you cover that when you do your GA4 migration. The next slide, we're going to look at the session. So session is actually quite an important concept in Google Analytics. So basically a session is a collection of user interaction that take place on your website within a certain time frame. So when we speak about user interaction, we basically refer to hits that we covered earlier. Sorry. So in Universal Analytics, a session can basically be made of multiple page views, multiple events, social interaction, and e-commerce transactions. So Universal Analytics is going to collect these events, and basically when the user has 30 minutes of inactivity or a reset event occurs, we're gonna cover that a bit later, then the session is deemed as done. So a user comes on your website, he's gonna have a few page views, he's gonna generate a few events. Then if Google Analytics doesn't record any activity after 30 minutes, then we consider the session as done, or with the reset event. We're gonna cover that just now. Instead, in GA4, it doesn't work like this. The user is gonna come onto your website. A session start event is going to be collected. It is automatically collected. It's basically being triggered when Google Analytics detects some type of activity. And then instead, GA4 is going to define a session between the first and the last event in a session. So that's quite different from the 30 minutes of inactivity from Universal Analytics. So yeah, but when it comes to session counting, we mentioned earlier that for those who know about that, basically in Universal Analytics, if you come onto the website with a specific campaign and then you come again to the website, even if it is within 5 or 10 minutes, if you come with a new campaign a second time, then a new session is basically going to be created. In GA4, that doesn't happen. If you come with a new campaign, then a new session is not going to be started. So it's important to keep that in mind when you compare the data between your Universal Analytics and your GA4. Keep in mind that a session is not being reset when you come from a new campaign. So yeah, don't be scared if you see a difference between the number of sessions. It's normal because the sessions are basically defined differently in GA4. Now, the next concept, the next slide, is about event parameters and user properties. So basically, when you record an event in Universal Analytics, you are able to actually add additional pieces of information onto your events thanks to custom dimension and custom metrics. This custom dimension and custom metrics used to have a scope. So basically you would have a hit scope, which is a custom dimension or metrics that you would use on hits or events, basically, if I can say. Then you used to have the user scope custom dimension, which is dimensions that you want to add at the user level. So that would stick to basically the users that you are dealing with. And then the same with the session scope custom dimensions. That would be something that you want to add to the sessions at a particular to a particular session that the user is having. And then you used to have product scope, which got to do with items that you would be selling on, let's say, e-commerce platform. So instead of custom dimension and custom metrics in GA4, you basically using event parameters and user properties. So there is no more scope, you know, as we do in universal analytics. Instead, event parameters are always used for events, and user properties are always used for user. So an event parameter, it's basically it's basically additional piece of information that you can use to further specify an action or an event that a user took on your website. So for example, you know, it can be, you know, if your event is, let's say, purchase, which is going to be your event name. But then, you know, you want to know, like, okay, it's a purchase, but how much was the value of the actual purchase? Then you are able to use an event parameter to specify the value of the purchase. Then you also have user properties, which is basically attributes that you want to assign to a group of your user base or to a specific user. So for example, it can be something like language preference. You know, let's say that your website has got different language available. Then a user is going to select, I don't know, a language like English as a preference. Then you want to record that into your user properties so that you can do further analysis. You can also use another example could be also the geographic location as an example. Also analytics does record a few user properties automatically, so you don't have to set these properties at all. Now on to the next slide, which is the user ID. So the user ID, it's quite an important concept in Google Analytics. So when a user comes onto your website, is recognized as a user thanks to a cookie that is generated by Google Analytics. So for those who know, that cookie is actually called client ID, and it's basically generated when you come to the website and you don't have the client ID cookie already on your browser. You know, so basically, if a user comes and doesn't have the client ID cookie in his browser, then we're going to know that he's a new user. If it is a user that already has the client ID cookie, then we know that it is a returning user. So that's the logic that Google Analytics uses to determine a new versus a returning user. But now the user ID is very important because, you know, we know that, for example, if a user is clearing his cookies, then you know that whole logic is basically started again. So let's say that I go on a website, I've got my client ID, and so, you know, I'm recording as a new user. Then later on during the day, I decide to clear my cookies and I come back to the website. GA is not going to see my client ID cookie. It's going to generate a new client ID, and I'm going to be seen as a new user, although I came a bit earlier during the day. So now with the user ID, the cool thing is that, you know, if you have a login system on your website or a sign-up system, then you're basically able to assign a unique ID to that user, so which is called the user ID. So it can be anything, any piece of information that you can use to uniquely identify the user. So, you know, usually when you let a user sign up, you assign him a customer ID, you know, in your own database or server. Then Google Analytics can make use of that customer ID to create a user ID. And you're basically going to be able to track that user whenever he logs into the platform. So then you don't have to worry about cookies being cleared or anything like this. And it's also very interesting because you're basically able to track your user cross-platform. Because basically, if I go onto your website and I don't log in, I've got my client ID cookie on my desktop. I'm going to be seen as a new user. If I use my mobile and I go onto your website, it's a different device. And then I'm going to generate a new client ID, but it's the same person using the two devices. Now, if the user is logging in or signing up, then whenever it does log in, then you're able to recognize this user across the desktop and the mobile. So yeah, it's very interesting to see user interactions between the web and the mobile. So you can, for example, identify a different behavior with your customer if when they're using your website or your mobile application. So that is very interesting. So the difference now between Universal Analytics and GA4, if you have experience with Universal Analytics, you know that UA used to create a different view when it comes to user ID. So you had to go into that specific view to look at your user in terms of different user IDs. GA4 does not work like this. Instead, user ID is basically natively integrated across all the reports. So you do not need to basically create a separate user ID reporting view like you used to do in Universal Analytics. Now I'm just going to show you a few slides about the user interface of GA4 and how it differs from Universal Analytics. So in GA4, you can see on that first slide that you have much less standard reports. I believe that in Universal Analytics, if I'm not mistaken, you used to have like more than 40 or 50 standard reports, which was a bit overwhelming, for the users. Instead, with GA4, Google Analytics decided to give you less standard reports, but more based on the bottom line of your business, so, user acquisition, revenue, returning users, etc. So yeah, more based on what a business actually needs to see at first glance, So you can see right here that you only have not even 10 reports on the left panel of your GA4. Yeah, basically more focus on the bottom line and less confusing. Now on to the next slide, Jeremy. So the whole idea with GA4 is that they give you less standard reports so that it's less confusing, but in exchange, Google Analytics for GA4 basically gives you the opportunity to create custom reports. So on the left side of the panel in your GA4, you're going to notice that that tab called Explore, which basically gives you access to exploration reports. So it's quite interesting because these exploration reports were only available to GS360 customer. GS360 is basically the paid version of Google Analytics. And in GA4, they have decided to make these reports available to every user of GA4, whether they pay or not. So basically, in the exploration reports, you have access to a couple of data visualization. So you have, for example, there you can see a free-form funnel exploration, which is pretty cool because you basically get to create custom funnel reports, which is something that people really wanted to do in Universal Analytics. You also have the path exploration that is basically the user journeys that user take, so how do they navigate between pages or screen name. Screen name is what we use as a page view for mobile. And then, yeah, basically that's just to name a few of them, freeform, funnel exploration, and path exploration. You also have the segment overlap, which is basically, it basically looks like circles. And you can see, for example, if you segment your user, I don't know, you create a segment for your English-speaking user, and then you have another segment for your users that actually complete a purchase on your website. Then you can basically take the two segments next to each other, and you can see how the two segments overlap each other. So basically, the overlap in this case would be what is the overlap between English-speaking users and users that complete a purchase. And then, you can basically, you can create many segments and overlap them. You also have the user lifetime exploration report. And I think that is it for the different reports you have access to. So I'm just going to give you an example into the next slide with the freeform report. So you can basically see that you create your report from a blank page. In your report, of course, you can choose the date range. That's a given. You can see on the left that you can add any segments that you want, any dimensions that you want, or metrics. So remember, dimension and metrics, that will be your event parameters and properties. You can choose visualizations that you want. So in this case, of course, it is freeform because that is an example. You can add segment comparison, and you can even add any rows that you want, as well as columns. So yeah, basically, GA4 gives you the possibility to completely customize the report that you created. So that's pretty interesting. On to the next line. So in terms of customization as well, remember the first slide that I showed you with the life cycle, standard reports. In your default user interface, you're basically able to add onto the standard reports, So let's say that, the standard reports available by default don't cover everything that you need. Well, GA4 gives you the ability to add any tab onto that user interface. So right here, I'm showing you an example with a user that added app developer tab. You can name it however you want. And basically in that tab, the user added some reports that pertain to Firebase. So for example, we have the user by app version, and we also have the latest app release overview onto the right. You can see also on the left, sorry, Jeremy. You can see also on the left, so the user basically added a life cycle a second time, but with a few different reports. So you just to give you an example that, even if you want to duplicate a tab, you're also able to do that. So you can customize it to your business needs, which is what GA4 aims to do. Now on to the next slide. Very interesting as well with the GA4 is that, as you know, as digital marketers, is that when you look at your data, there is different attribution models that you can use. So depending on, the decisions that your business makes, you might want to look at your conversion and attribution on last click model. So the last click model, for example, is, the last acquisition channel that generated the conversion. So in that last click model, obviously, the attribution is going to be attributed to the last attribution channel that was used by the user to actually convert. And then you also have the first click model, for example. You have many attribution models, and I'm gonna cover. I'm gonna mention one when I finish with this. But in this slide, you can see that we are basically comparing the last click model with the first click model. So as you can imagine, the first click model is basically attributing the conversion to the first attribution channel that was interacted with the user. So you can see here that the data is slightly different. We have a different conversion number for paid search, display, and organic search. So yeah, basically very interesting because so basically before I forget, you can see that on the left panel in the tab that is called advertising, and yeah, you're basically able to compare any model that you want. So the one model that was also introduced in GA4 is called the data-driven model, which is basically a model that basically leverages machine learning to better attribute to better attribute the conversion based on a whole bunch of machine learning elements that Google Analytics introduced, and it's becoming very popular because it seems to be the more accurate attribution model out there. So keep that in mind when you deal with GA4. The data-driven model is actually very interesting. So now on to the next slide. Yeah, so in analytics, they also introduced the configure panel, which is really cool because basically you're able to do a couple of things. So remember that in Universal Analytics, you had to go into the admin panel to add a goal. You had to specify if your goal was destination based or if it was event based. If it was event based, you had to give the event category, action, and label, as well as the value. When it comes to GA4, all you need to do is to go into your configure panel, you go into events, and as you can see on the right, all you need to do is to toggle a button to basically mark an event as a conversion. So conversion is basically the equivalent of goals in Universal Analytics. And yeah, all you need to do is to toggle a button for a specific event that you record, and it turns into a conversion / a goal. So in this case, on this example, you can see that form submit is considered as a conversion. So in this case, it's it could be a website that has got a contact form, and that's basically the only conversion event that you have on your website. So you record the event in GA4 using, for example, Google Tag Manager. And once the event is being received by GA4, you just go into that panel and you just toggle a button to mark it as a goal / conversion. You can also do a couple of things. For example, you can create events on top of events. So as you can see with the two buttons right here. So basically, you can basically record events, and then you can decide to, okay, so when this event happens, then we can basically consider that this event also happened. So instead of going into your Google Tag Manager again, what you can do is that you can click on Create Event, and you're basically gonna be able to tell GA4, okay, if you receive this particular event, then I want you to create that event on top of it, and that can be useful for data analysis, etc. In that panel, as you can see on the left, you're also able to create your audiences. The custom definitions is basically where you set up your event parameters as well as your user properties. It's very straightforward. I didn't even include these in the presentation, but yeah, you're able to configure everything from that configure panel. The next slide, I wanted to show you the debug view because that's actually pretty interesting. So basically what GA4 lets you do is that, when you have implemented your data collection tracking on your website and you want to test it, Basically, GA4 gives you that option straight from Google Analytics. So for the marketers in the audience that have used Google Tag Manager, you know that you can use a preview mode. And the preview mode is basically going to let you interact with the website and then let you know about the events that were recorded. Well, with GA4, you don't even need to go through Google Tag Manager anymore. You can just log into your Google Analytics, go to the configure panel and the debug view panel as well, launch the website in another tab. And basically, as you navigate through the website, GA4 is going to show you real time what events are actually being recorded. Because remember, everything is an event in GA4. So you can see right here, I went to the website, I triggered the page view, I went onto another page of the website, I triggered another page view. It's also showing me, for example, right here, the custom client ID. Which is user properties that I did set up on the website. So it's showing you the event parameters and the user properties in real time in the debug view, which is really interesting and really handy to debug implementation. Now on to the next slide. Another highlight of the GA4 user interface is that you have access to machine learning generated insights. So basically, when GA4 is receiving data, over time, in the backend of Google Analytics, it's basically going to analyze your data and try to record patterns. And in the insight panel of your GA4, it's basically going to give you so it can be anything from like outstanding data. So for example, you can see right here on the first square that users from a specific source spiked, so it could be that you didn't notice it in your report. The insight is going to tell you like, oh wait, like that specific group of user spiked. So it basically lets you know about things that you didn't even notice. Then it's also going to let you know about anomalies. So for example, if a web page is taking way too much time to load, or if, for example, a specific set of events all of a sudden start to drop. So it lets you know about anomalies as well. And it also lets you know about predictions. So is there an example right here? For example, on the right, you can see that we have an audience that is called predicted top spenders. With machine learning and the data that GA records, it can basically predict revenue for a specific group of users. That's why also it's very important that you start your GA4 implementation as soon as possible. So that the machine learning algorithm can digest as much data as possible, and that your insight, become as accurate and useful as possible. And then getting started with GA4. So basically, when it comes to implementing your GA4, so although we know that Universal Analytics is going to be deprecated next year, a lot of businesses are still actively using Universal Analytics reports. So you don't want to just yet, switch off your Universal Analytics, because your marketers might still be using it. So the cool thing with GA4 is that basically you can implement it alongside Universal Analytics. So that is basically what we call the dual tagging or the dual setup. So for example, if you use Google Tag Manager, You can basically set up your tags to be sent to Universal Analytics and to GA4. So you can basically record the two alongside and, compare your data between the two. So remember that, you cannot really get the same metrics, for example, the sessions and the number of users, because they have different definition in GA4, but it's still very useful, to compare the two and to make sure that your new GA4 implementation answer your needs. So that is the dual tagging, and very easily done with Google Tag Manager. So how does it work? Basically, to get your GA4 going. So the first thing that you need to do is obviously to create a GA4 property. By the way, now when you go into Google Analytics, when you create a new property, the property by default is now GA4, whereas back then it used to be Universal Analytics. When you go into the advanced settings as well, Google Analytics is going to give you the option to create a Universal Analytics property alongside your GA4, but it is not a setting that is shown. It is in the advanced settings, because they really want to push GA4, as the new Google Analytics. So yeah, so GA4 is now the property by default. So you start by creating your GA4 property. Then you're gonna create what we call a data stream, which is basically it's basically made of a measurement ID, and it's basically to let GA4 know what type of data it is receiving. So it can be, for example, a web data stream, and then you will have your mobile data stream separately. In this case, it can be an Android data stream or an iOS data stream. Then the next step is for you to activate your enhanced measurement. So one cool thing about GA4 as well is that you basically have some events that are recorded out of the box. And you just need to activate that in your data stream. It's basically a toggle of a button, super easy. So obviously, as automatic events, you have the page view, but that is by default. But then you can also collect event automatically. For example, you can have the form submit. You can also have video interaction events. Video interaction events which required quite some coding in Tag Manager to be implemented. In this case, it's just automatic. And then you also have other things like sorry guys, I can't really remember the other one. We have form submit, we have page view, we have video interaction. Sorry guys, I'm having a blank, but there is a couple of other events that I think there is two more that I'm forgetting, apologies. But yeah, you basically have events that are collected out of the box. So then next step is to enable the data collection. So you basically take the measurement IDs that you got from your data stream, and then you implement it. You implement the data collection in your Google Tag Manager, or you can also implement it using the gtag.js script, which is basically a script that you put on your page that starts recording Google Analytics. At Sprout, we recommend to use Google Tag Manager because it's much better for the non-tech digital marketers. And yeah, it basically gives you a really nice user interface to manage all your tags, and yeah, makes your life much easier in my opinion. Then you can also enable Google Signals, which is basically recording demographics when it comes to your user, demographic and interest. So basically the way it works is that you know, when someone is logging into their Google accounts, for example, to access Gmail, obviously, you know, it is part of the Google ecosystem, and then Google is basically going to record information from the accounts that you created, and also from the pages that you visit, which is basically the interest. Everything is done in a anonymous way, so you know there is no issues with like regulations like GDPR, etc. And basically, Google is going to send that data to the Google Analytics platform. And yeah, that data is going to be used to know about the demographic and interest. But it's also a requirement when you want to do remarketing campaigns. And then you can obviously step 6, you know, do some product linking with the rest of the Google ecosystem. So you're able to link your property to your Google Search Console, to your Google Ads, to your Ads Manager, and finally, number 7, for example, to BigQuery. So BigQuery is basically a data science tool that is used to basically, you know, do data analysis, but on a lot of data. And yeah, it is very handy when you want to do a very advanced data analysis, you know. And then when it comes to the advanced measurement, yeah, basically Google gives you a list of recommended events that you can implement onto your website. So, you know, that is recommended events that are used across the industry. So that could be, you know, for example, if you have a website where you can buy items, obviously to implement a purchase event. If the user can log in or sign up, to implement a login or sign up event. So in the GA4 support documents, they give you some recommendations there. Then the custom events and custom parameters are basically up to you. But obviously it's going to give you much more insight into your user and the user journey if you implement this custom event and custom parameters. The conversion events also are very important, which is step 10. You know, you can implement events like clicking on a button and interacting with this or that on your website. But when you actually, you know, when you try to optimize, let's say, your Google Ads, it's very important that you optimize your Google Ads towards conversion events, you know, because that is the bottom line of your business, you know. So it could be a purchase event, it could be a form submit. Some bloggers, you know, they actually want you to spend time on their website. So a conversion event could also be, you know, some time spent on a specific page because the website owner wants you to actually read the article. So very important when it comes to optimizing your campaign. Number 11, implement e-commerce measurement. So obviously that's only applicable if you have e-commerce platform on your website, if you're selling items, etc. And then of course, yeah, the link to the rest of the Google marketing platform. So DV, which is display video, SA, which is search, optimize, CM, sorry, which is campaign manager. Optimize, if you don't know, is basically an A/B testing tool. So you can basically link optimize with your GA4 so that the data can be automatically sent to your, the data of the experiment can be automatically sent to Google Analytics. And of course, Data Studio, which is now called the Looker Studio, by the way, which is a very good dashboard / reporting tool. You can basically link your GA4 and your Data Studio, and you can, you know, you can basically customize an entire dashboard, create reports, you know, line graphs, bar charts, pie charts, And you can basically plug data from different data sources. So Data Studio or Looker Studio, if you don't know about it or if you're not using it, I really recommend to have a look at it because it's super useful to look at your data. And that is it for this slide. And Jeremy, I'll let you speak after that.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Remy, and thank you everybody for tuning in and listening to us. I believe the presentation will be shared afterwards. If you'd love to ask any questions or chat about GA4 to us, our contact details is in the deck. Thank you very much.
Firstly, just want to say from AAXO, thank you so much, Jeremy and Remy, for taking the time and spending this first lunch and learn session with us to share these very valuable insights. It's been extremely useful. As I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we did record today's session. So if you would like to share this with any team members that were not able to join us today, we'll provide you with the on-demand recording post this session. If you would like to get in touch with Sprout Performance Partners, they did supply their details on one of their slides, but if you did not get a chance to jot this down, then please do get in contact with us and we'll supply those to you again. So just some key takeaways to wrap up the presentation is that Universal Analytics will be sunset on the 1st of July, 2023. So do set up an instance of Google Analytics 4 as soon as possible to start building up that historical data. Give yourself enough time to familiarize yourself with the new user interface and terminology. And lastly, thank you to the audience for joining us today. We do hope to see you next Friday at the same time for our next Lunch and Learn session. We'll be covering Metaverse Marketing 101. So do join us as we go deep into the metaverse and explore online eventing, marketing and branding opportunities. This session is going to be presented by Richard Frank, the CTO of Flow Communications. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you so much and see you all next week. Bye for now.